So hi guys, before we start, we do have a bit of a disclaimer about this episode. We do go into some quite heavy topics. Some of them, might be quite triggering for some of you. Some of them are quite anxiety inducing. So we just wanted to, tell you before you listen so you can have the option to opt out.
Yeah, so if you do choose to listen, we will be talking about issues like termination due to scan results. And if you are affected by the issues that we talk about today, then please contact the Antenatal Results and Choices phone line.
So how have your life, love and little ones been this week, Mill?
Do you know what, babe? A few ups and downs.
Yeah.
But currently feeling more on and up.
Okay.
Not going to get smug about it because, things could all change again very quickly.
We know what happens when people get smug.
Yes. And how about you, my love?
Mine, just, as exhausting as ever. Still not sleeping.
I think we just have to accept we're constantly exhausted.
I totally agree. But also,
just give into it. Yeah.
So I'm really excited about this today's recording. We've got a fabulous guest on.
I know. So it's our first guest as well.
Yeah.
And she is somebody that I, have followed for years. Her name's Katherine Ormerod, and she is a writer. She's very eloquent and outspoken and honest and real.
Yeah.
She's a mum of two gorgeous boys. And we are going to, ask her about her journey to motherhood.
Yeah.
She's also brought out an amazing book. She ghostwrites for people. The list goes on and on. Her outfit's always impeccable.
When I first met Katherine, she was the fashion features director of Grazia. And over lockdown, she pivoted and she ghostwrote, I think 5 books.
Wow.
While the rest of the world was kind of baking banana bread. She's a
and
real
she also had a baby
powerhouse.
Just during that time.
Yeah. So, she's got a lot going on. And what I love about Katherine, and I think it was the first person, I'd ever met in the mum world, actually, that spoke so frankly and so hilariously and was just so unedited about, lots of topics, which no one else talks about in motherhood.
Totally.
And she's that raw on social media. So literally what you see is what you get. And
I can't wait to ask her Mumlemma. Someone else has got to have a good embarrassing moment, right? Someone needs
Surely.
to top mine, please.
No one's going to top yours.
Oh, God.
We know this. We've also got a new feature.
Yes.
Bring it back or leave it in the past. And so Katherine loves fashion, so I'm sure it's going to be something about that. But I'm excited to see what she's got to say.
Yeah, I can't wait to test it out.
Yeah. Should we get her on?
Let's do it.
Hi guys, how are you? Look who I've got.
I was wondering where she was. Hello.
Here you are. Hi, sweet thing. How are you doing? I did a couple of kisses that I had to rub off because it was a bit lipstick.
Oh,
Yeah.
I always get lipstick on her. And can I give her a little cuddle? She's going to have a nap, and then when we're done, I won't get to see her for a bit. Oh, hi, darling. Oh, thank you so much for coming. Yeah, come sit.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome
I'm in here.
Yeah, you're in that corner. So get comfy, get snug.
There we go.
Pop it. Do you want to give Charlie a quick kiss to him? And go have your milk.
I think I've lost that.
Oh, they'll come
It's
in.
fully fallen off.
We're having mic issues.
That's okay?
Okay, do you want to take?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Take care.
Take baby.
We want to kick off by asking you some mum-related quickfire questions.
Okay, I'm here for this.
We're not
Okay.
allowed to prep. We just have to go straight in.
Parenting books and websites, love or hate?
I think just take them with a pinch of salt.
What's your most embarrassing mum outfit to date?
This is not going to win me fans, but I'm not sure if I've had one. One time I did go out with only one eyeliner on.
There we go.
There we go.
That was
That's
a really,
great. That's
really
great.
strong moment where you catch yourself in the mirror and you're like, I've just got one winged
Mum
eye.
life.
Yeah, cool. That's really, really not the chic vibe.
So slick.
Yeah, there we go. That's it.
That's a great answer. Okay, what is your go-to quick and easy kids dinner? And just be honest.
Pasta pesto. Isn't that the same for
Isn't that
everyone?
the same as everyone?
Literally.
Kids TV shows you know off by heart.
Octonauts are a big
Oh, same.
thing in our house. Ring of Fire, those films, Sakatan, The Caves. It's amazing what you've learned
Boy.
about. I actually fully have learned so much from Octonauts.
Me too, actually.
Which
I have
shows,
no idea what you guys do.
Yeah, it's a boy
You'll get
thing.
into it.
Yeah.
Wait until you find out, and suddenly, you have all of this understanding of coral reefs, and
Oh, wow.
it's really, really good. It's good.
Okay, best buy in year one.
Can I say 2 different ones for 2 different babies?
Yes.
Because I think that it depends on what kind of kid you get. So the first for Gray, without a shadow of a doubt, it was the Baby Bjorn bouncer, and I stuck him in that till he was 2 because he was just...
So you're just happy in it.
He wasn't necessarily happy in it. He was just stuck in it.
Yeah.
And I think
He had no choice.
had no choice. And like I'd get in the bath and bounce him with my arm out, like washing under, like this kind of movement.
Jiggling with your foot.
Jiggling with the foot. Like at least there was some kind of movement. I didn't feel quite as bad that I would have like leaving him in the cot, for example.
And they can't roll, it's safe.
Exactly. And then I would say for Ripley, he could just sit down with a pack of wipes, so I didn't really need that.
Oh, bless him.
20 minutes just pulling one out, looking like that. So for him...
Very different children.
Very different
Second
children.
kid energy.
Yeah.
So for him, I think it's much more about the toys. And he's much more dexterous, much more into putting things inside things. And so, those are the 2 things I'd say.
Best restaurant to take your kids to?
Oh, it has to be big, and it has to be clinky, noisy to cover the sound. So I love the shoom. I always think it's a really
Still chic.
good thing. Yeah, it's still chic. And like you can give your kid like a try of like a doll or something and feel like you're doing something. Then just, give him the sausage bath because that's what he's going to eat.
In reality.
You've got both options there. And yeah, it's lovely. And they're so good with kids. They've got like a million high chairs. There's a kids
that's so
menu.
good to know.
Yeah,
I would
that
have
is good
thought,
to Pizza Express.
any pizza restaurant basically.
Yeah,
But
totally.
It's just those big cavernous spaces, warehouses, things that are like a bit better.
Hide the noise.
Caravan's another really good one because it's like it's the small intimate spaces that don't work.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. Or just ones when you go and the waiters are just like really unhelpful and they look a bit kind of horrified when you show up at the door with like 2 of your kids.
To be fair, the mess under the high chair after you leave, I would be horrified. You'd just be like,
Yeah, true.
No, not today.
Okay, favourite mum with career life hack.
I'm very fortunate that I get to choose my own hours. And I think if you are in a position where you work part-time or freelance or in a flexible working situation, which I feel amazingly is becoming more part of everyone's, realities these days, I think starting at 10 is really a good idea.
Yes.
So my reasoning for this is if you start at 8:30 or 9, you're generally paying for your childminder while your child has its first sleep.
True.
So
while they're little and they still have that morning nap,
and that
right?
morning nap lasts. But I mean, we're 15 months. We're still doing it. Like Gray kept it for quite a long time. Anyway,
I love the morning nap.
The morning nap,
the morning
exactly.
nap.
So I think when you're easing yourself back in, that kind of like. I started with like 10 till 2 childcare and then 10 till 3, but it gives you this amazing moment that, that the house is suddenly quiet. You can do 15 minutes of exercise. You can have your shower, put your makeup on, get yourself together for the day. I think that sometimes it's like you feel that you should be back in the 9 to 5 and you deprive yourself of like that little heartbeat moment of pulling it back.
I so agree.
Having that moment to resettle yourself. Because, you could have been up since 5.
That's really good advice.
And it's working now with a 4-year-old and, a 1-year-old, like that kind of moment. And of course, things will change. But equally, I'm not even sure, even when he doesn't sleep, that I would get chocolate. I feel like we'll find some kind of activity for him to do.
We actually do quiet time.
Yeah.
So Sienna doesn't have a morning nap anymore.
Okay.
And it's about to change because she's about to go to nursery, but she goes into her cot with like some toys and books and like listens to her like Tony box and has an hour in her room from 9 to 10.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Or no,
That's
actually it depends
interesting.
it depends. Maybe it's more 8 till 9. It depends kind of how early she's woken up.
Yeah.
But we do quiet time.
And she's happy with that?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Occasionally she like tears the book up.
But yeah,
Every day's different.
Yeah.
that's my trying to make the 2 things work together hack. But I've done it now for both kids and it's worked really well. Obviously 10 till 4 isn't 9 to 5, meaning there may be 2 extra hours of work you have to do in the evening, but whatever, you make it work.
Yeah. What is your favourite me time activity?
God, I'm such a me time mum.
That's great.
Yeah, I am.
That's good.
It's the only way that you can make it work. And I'm really like full on about scheduling that stuff at the beginning of the week. It's always exercise for me.
Is it?
And I don't see it as like wellness or self-care. I see it as healthcare.
Yeah.
Like very much after you've had children, It is about getting your body back to that strength in your core and all of that stuff. It's like, that is my investment in myself.
Do you find that it's just about you physically, or do you also think mentally, you know, when you have kids and you need that mental space?
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes I turn up in a foul mood.
Yeah.
I feel like hormonally, like for a long time over this period, you are not entirely yourself.
Yeah, very true.
And I can turn up and be like, why am I here? Why has this happened? You know, keeping it all inside. Hi, how are you today? Yeah, the same thing. Oh, lovely,
very British.
Lovely, exactly. And then by the time you've walked out, it's gone. For whatever reason, it's gone. And you're like, okay, I'm going to be a better parent now. I'm going to have a better day. And I've taught myself that lesson again, that this is temporary. These feelings don't define me. I'm not an angry person now. I was just having a moment. I needed some space.
Absolutely.
I needed to get my body moving, maybe work some of these hormones around my body.
I couldn't agree more.
You know, all of that stuff. And, you know, we as women, we hold our emotions in our joints, in our hips, and, you know, those stretches and opening. I do a lot of Pilates and bar and those kind of classes. I'm not a big sweater, personally.
Same.
Yeah, maybe a light glow across the brow, but that's as far as it goes. But yeah, it recalibrates everything. It's everything from feeling strong. Like, I've got a 10-kilo baby that can't walk at the moment, so I am picking that child up and down. I mean, my arms are insanely strong at the moment because I am lifting these 10 kilos. It will go slack again, you know, as soon as he walks, you're suddenly like, oh man,
that was fun for a minute.
Yeah, Katherine Schwarzenegger. Jeez, she's got
some serious guns.
I don't think I've ever had that, I have to say.
Maybe your kids started walking before they got hench. Like, honestly, it's a whole new thing. Like, oh, you feel your ass.
I think when you're
all
petite
the
and then you've got boys as well.
Yes, definitely.
Exactly. And Gray was a 10-pound boy at birth, so he.
Oh wow, he was
wow.
10 pounds
With a 100 centile head, and we
Oh,
know
so you
what
had
that
it.
means.
You had, yes, we sure do. You had it worse than I did then,
Yeah,
because
it
we're
was
similar.
Really,
size,
really,
aren't we?
really big baby.
Yeah.
And Ripley was only 7 pounds, so it was like slip right out. But you know, it is
Slip
like,
right out.
Wow, it was two pushes.
Such
I'm
a
not
visual
joking.
You're joking. Oh, so you did natural births both times.
Yes, I did. And it was a very straightforward situation in comparison to first time. You know, most people have that story.
Okay, so well, leading on from that, there's 2 more quickfire questions.
Come on then.
And okay, I really didn't hold back when revealing my most embarrassing
You
moment
did not.
recently. Do you have an embarrassing mum moment?
Oh, so many.
Good.
I think some of the things that I'm really like embarrassed about, I think I'd say I'm more ashamed of rather than necessarily. I mean, there are embarrassing things like being at White City House, like a Soho House, and these lovely, you know, velvet cushions suddenly turning down. There's like a 10p piece of diarrhea on it, and you're like, there's no way to get this off without it being
really obvious.
Yeah, that's going to be there forever. It's still there now.
So
you know that has not gone.
So tell us, do you
cannot
do a
off.
scrub, or do you just leave it, walk and leave?
I'm like, you know, like that.
Just quick, place a wipe over it. Just give it, yeah.
But yeah, I think like when I really look back on it, it's like the times that I haven't set my boundaries clear enough, and you know, I've been working as a journalist. It's really tough. You know, things suddenly change, and you've got to rewrite a intro for something. And I've done things like been at a ball pond and left my kid in the ball pond and sat there on notes rewriting things and felt the weight of other people's judgment on my children and judged myself because it wasn't right. And like, you know, those are the things that I'm really embarrassed that I did, I suppose. And I wish I could take back, and you know, but I can't. You just have to.
You have to cut yourself some slack.
Have to cut yourself
because
some
it wasn't
slack.
actually a seriously dangerous situation.
It wasn't. It wasn't.
You had to make that decision at
course,
the time you're trying to juggle it.
Exactly.
We'll go more into that. But like,
just
I
think it's so important that everyone knows that every working mother has been on a Zoom call and heard their baby crying upstairs and you can't go. You just, and especially at the beginning where you're trying to prove that you're back. You know?
Absolutely.
Breastfeeding on a doing an interview over Zoom.
I've done that too.
Like being interviewed by a man who didn't quite understand, like hadn't experienced, you know, breastfeeding or having like giving birth, and I like couldn't even string a sentence together. Yeah. And I afterwards was like so embarrassed.
Yeah,
you are. I came across.
I feel like That's.
But it was like 6 weeks after I'd given birth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And really, should you have been doing it? Well,
Probably
Probably
not.
not.
But
Yeah.
equally, who's saying no to opportunities
Yeah.
when you need to earn money to put a roof over your
Well, this is
head?
it.
It's like that's the.
There
it's
lies
all
the
very
dilemma.
well. Exactly. It's all very well. Like give yourself space, but Mama's also got to eat. You know,
am
and
I gonna
feed
work?
those children. Exactly.
Yeah. It's very true.
So yeah, I think those are the things that the second time round that I'm like most embarrassed that I did, I suppose.
You learn though, don't
yes,
you?
of
Through
course
your
you
first
do.
child, I think you
course
go
you
through
do.
all these experiences.
one thing that we really love to talk about is, and we've chatted about it loads,
Yeah.
is people's motherhood like stories and journeys that, you know, how they became mums, and we'd love to ask you about yours.
Yeah, of course. So I always wanted a family, always wanted to have kids. I actually got married for the first time when I got engaged at 24, married at 26.
So did I.
Oh, wow.
That relationship ended up in divorce just before my 30th birthday. And I think that really like clarified and crystallized for me how important a family was for me, like to my core. So I've actually was fortunate enough to meet my current partner quite quickly, and probably within about 18 months we started trying for a baby, and he was young, so he was like down for it. Good for him. He was only 26
Love
when
that.
we met, and I was already in my 30s, but he was like, let's go for it. And I then didn't get pregnant, and I think that's so hard to deal with. And we got to like a year down the road and you're like what's going on here?
And
Yeah.
and after a year, had you been kind of tracking? Had you been doing?
I've been
what had
tracking
you
it
been
from
doing?
day one.
So
like
from day one,
no
ovulation
messing around,
sticks, like,
yeah. I mean, probably the first 2 months I was like, whatever. I feel like by the time you get to 6 months, everyone is doing something because, and you know, it's so funny. I was like talking to my mum and she's like, oh yeah, your Nan, she thought she was infertile, but they didn't realise there was like specific days to have sex on.
Stop it.
No, but you know, it's honestly
Well,
like
so this is a
they don't
relatively new
know.
thing.
yeah, it's like people like the education. Like my
Wow,
grandmother
that's
left
interesting.
school when she
Yeah,
was
me neither.
14. She knew nothing about her body, and she
Yeah.
was actually like, it's a wild story. She was sterilised without signing off on it after, because she had postnatal depression.
No.
Yeah, isn't that
What?
wild?
Oh, my
I mean, it was
God.
very serious. She had a lot of.
Was that your
like,
grandma, did you
yeah,
say?
a lot of health
Wow.
issues.
Wow.
Anyway, I digress into that. All we can really say is that things have come on so far
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
such a short space of time, in the space of 2 generations. We have much more of an idea of how our bodies work, and like the fertility conversations we're having. They're wild.
Yeah,
you
they
know?
are.
And I think that I always kept the faith that it was going to work out. I was just obviously stressed about it, and every period that comes you start like to be really upset. Anyway, I ended up going to a fertility specialist. I was given a certain set of drugs. We did some scans and I became pregnant. And on that pregnancy I had to continue taking the drugs, which were like synthetic hormones. And oh man,
Did it make you feel awful?
I've never been more ill. Like I've
Really?
had hepatitis. I've been in hospital for long stints with illnesses. This is.
Do you remember what drugs they were?
It was a synthetic form of progesterone,
Okay.
and that's what it's meant to help you maintain your. And you know, for all I know, maybe things would never have changed for me, because I had I was ovulating very, very late in the cycle, which was the problem. I wasn't ovulating on day 14. It was more like day 22 or something.
Yeah.
So it was really difficult. He was obviously huge. And I had very poor support from my midwives. You know, I asked for a cesarean and I was told it was not available, so I should just put it out my mind.
Even though you had a really big baby.
Yeah, and I was told that gravity would help. It did not. Just
Wow.
you know, FYI, that was a lie.
I'm literally like clenching inside.
Yeah, and it was really tough. And you know, he came out with this 100th centile head, and like that's the battering ram. You know, like that's the bit that really, and it was a really tough rehab afterwards.
Ooh, ouch.
Yeah. But there we go. We had a natural birth. He was all there. I had taken all the drugs available by that point, you know, and I was high as a kite. I didn't sleep for like 2 days. It's literally tripping. I wrote an article while I was in hospital.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I'd had
What
a
does it-
deadline
what did
that
it
I
sound
hadn't
like?
finished.
Was this when you were in labour?
No, after labour. So you
Okay.
know you're
so
in
recover,
hospital.
you were kept in.
recover
Yeah.
in like a room
full of screaming women.
Yeah, and their partners and, you know,
And babies.
all of
that was the
stuff.
hardest bit for
Yeah,
me. Was
the
the
one
recovery.
toilet for 16 people. Are you joking?
And the
like,
buzzers going off every 5 minutes all through
exactly.
the night.
And we all know, like, there are some fluids going on around that
Oh, yeah.
time. I mean, just grotesque. I mean, if there's anything in the system that needs to change, it's that, you know. And we were panicked. We just wanted to get out.
Yeah.
And the like whole breastfeeding thing, it seemed like he was up my boob.
And did you
Seemed
have
to
any?
be
Did a
doing-
midwife show you how to do it or anything?
No, I had nothing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Wow, that must be so hard. I mean, I found the latch like quite difficult.
Yeah.
Both times I was really struggling with it in those first couple of days. Like,
Yeah.
like getting that right. So like if you don't, and I had someone showing me and I still found it really
Yeah,
hard.
it was just like a wild environment to be in. Like there was a fist fight that broke out in the room that we were in. I'm not joking, that actually happened. You know, and we were just like, we
Wow.
need to get out. And I think in the rush to get out, I didn't like. I was still, I'm sure, high when we
Yeah,
left.
you
Like, there's no
definitely-
doubt, like the amount of drugs that have
Yeah.
been coursing through my veins. And then the sickness started.
Really?
And it was can't like to explain to anyone what it's like seeing this child that you've just birthed in abject misery and pain all day long for months.
Did he have reflux?
Yeah, so he had reflux, but he was sick about minimum 50-60 times a day.
Wow.
So like most of the milk.
Yeah,
And he's a
I
big
was
baby
I
that's
was
really
pumping
hungry.
because he ended up not working, but I was so committed to the breastfeeding journey. So I was pumping 10 times a day, setting an alarm, waking myself up at 4
I mean,
a.m.
it pretty much takes
you
up
know.
your whole day.
It was the whole thing.
The noise of the pump.
Do you
the
think that
insanity of it.
that reflux is related to the drugs you get given in birth? I
Look,
do
I
you-
don't know. I was a reflux baby. The second baby who had a very lovely drug-free birth also was a reflux
Fine,
baby.
so there's
I
no
feel
correlation
like
for
we're
you.
just sicky people,
Right.
You know, no
Yeah, my
correlation for
C-section
me.
babies have reflux.
Yeah,
so,
fine,
yeah.
okay.
It's
yeah.
just
It's hard to pinpoint.
It
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
It's really hard
Causes
to
it.
pinpoint, but it was like a leaky tap. There was never a point that he wasn't wearing like 2 bibs that were like
And it's the
sodden.
constant washing and everything. You wear
Constant,
everything around
constant.
you.
But it was the pain for him that
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
was the issue. And because he came out so big, the weight that he lost from being sick wasn't dramatic enough for anyone really to take it seriously. And you go to the doctor and you're like, this baby is crying for 6, 7, 8 hours a day. And, he'd be puking through that and then puking through my chest. And then I'd be like pumping out more milk to give him. And then he's puking it all up. And it's like the whole,
It's exhausting.
just the cycle that I got caught up in and the mind games I was playing with myself of like the fear that there's not enough milk in the fridge because you haven't pumped, because you missed something, because you maybe slept for 15 minutes longer, or trying to grab some of your sleep back. And we were in a much more traditional situation, my partner and I, because he had an office job, so he'd leave in the morning and then that was it, these vast expanses.
Did you have any help?
No. And this is where I made the fatal mistake. So I went back to work after about 5 weeks and did it all during naps. So there wasn't
Which
any.
is,
wow.
I mean,
It
how
was-
you
I mean,
are
it's-
only,
it
like
was-
you're incredible. Because,
Yeah,
like,
it was-
that
I
is
couldn't
no
even spell
joke.
my own name.
Yeah.
It was, do you know what? I hadn't finished my book. That was really where everything kind of went wrong. I had another 2 chapters to go when I went into labour. So, the deadline was still there, the publishing schedule was still there, so I had to get back to writing.
It's a lot of pressure.
It is, but it meant that during every time he napped, I wasn't like going to a baby class or connecting
Yeah.
with friends. I was working.
or having
Yeah.
any you time.
But I was also very, very, I don't know, like the idea of getting childcare for an 8-week-old baby made me feel vile inside, like there must be something wrong with me.
Do you
And
think
all
that's
I could,
people making you
Oh,
feel like? Do you think that's
1000%.
judgment from others, from
Yeah, like the
society?
hindsight now, like looking
Yeah.
back. Like,
What was
see
I
the
doing,
pressure that you were
obviously?
putting
Yeah, what was
on
that?
yourself
What
to,
was
to,
it? What
to
was
only
it?
give. Was it only your milk still at this
it was
stage?
only my milk through to the 4-month crisis that we had basically. But I had no childcare. I'm pumping 10 times a day. This baby's crying the whole time. He did always sleep.
was going to say
So
that
was
because
the
a lot
real-
of reflux
Yeah.
babies, until the reflux kind of gets sorted,
Yeah.
they like won't really nap.
Honestly, he was exhausted. He had
From
no
the
more
crying,
energy
yeah.
left.
Bless him.
Like he would be out like a light for like long naps. So I did have the space to work. But yeah, I think in my head it was like, why have babies if you're going to, that was the message that I'd like
Given
internalize.
yourself.
Why even have children if you're not going to look after them yourself when they're so tiny? And people say things like that to me now on social media. Like if I go on holiday, you get like, why do these people even procreate? There's,
But you still
there's
spend,
stuff.
even if you had people help
Drives me
you a
mad,
few
yeah.
hours in the day,
Of course.
you still have all the
Of
rest of
course.
it, and they always want you, I always think, with children.
And I think the real kicker that I should have realised is we are not meant to do this on our own. And if it
No,
had been, if it
absolutely.
had been
Yeah.
my mum, I would have felt bad. No one would have judged me. But we don't have those villages, and that is the
Yeah, we
reality.
don't
of
have that anymore.
atomized city urban lives where women are working and child rearing. They don't have the acceptable face of childcare available anymore.
100%.
So you have to pay for it, and there's something in that transaction that still there's a tension
Stigma.
for everyone. There's a stigma, for
I
sure.
felt
There
that,
is.
definitely.
I felt that too.
Like, I have a full-time nanny, and
And that's almost like saying, "Oh, well, nothing's hard for you."
no, nothing.
Yeah, you
must have
a great
never
life.
complain.
No.
Never complain.
Exactly.
And I'm so fortunate, and I know that I am, and I honestly appreciate her so much. She's amazing. She's part of our family, and it was necessary with the second child. I mean, my husband works. First baby was different. We were in lockdown. He was on furlough, but like I wouldn't be able to work. Yeah.
I felt the same as you the first time. It was my parents, and my mum did Wednesdays, my dad did Fridays.
Yeah.
I fit my work in around my parents. And, the second baby, it just felt slightly different. Suddenly, as you say, you kind of accept that you need to build your village. You need some extra
and
pairs of
to not
hands.
feel guilty either.
Yeah.
And I think it's really good to normalise talking about it as
Definitely.
well. And I've had people, I've mentioned it on social media that I have a nanny, and I've had people message me and say thank you, because otherwise I'd look at your life or how your life seems on social media and think, and compare myself and think, how does she do it? How are her kids dressed? How does she have her hair and makeup done? How is, and I honestly, without the nanny there, none of us would be dressed, and they'd be like sick everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's what goes on behind the scenes.
It is. It's what goes on behind the scenes, but that is like whenever anyone says, "How do you do it all?" the answer is always childcare.
Yes.
There's nothing else. That's the
There's
answer.
no like magical
There's-
secret.
Exactly.
Like,
It's just like the most expensive, best value thing that I've ever invested my money in. And look, there are pros and cons to both, because this time round I have had childcare from really early on, but I've kept it at 12 hours a week, and he's 15 months, and that's not very much time to still be working. But I wanted to lean in more to being at home, like doing more of the stay-at-home mum thing as a choice, because I know this is my last baby.
Yeah.
He's an angel. So it's a joy to spend time with him, to have that as an option. I mean, this time round, I suppose what I'm doing would be more acceptable, but it didn't mean what I did the first time round was wrong. I put, Gray was already in nursery at this age.
Yeah.
But that was better
That's
for
what you-
him.
and that's
He
what
was
you
that
needed to do
exactly.
as
He
well.
was that child. I was at that stage in my career. That's what worked. It's not like, this is what we're going to do. At 2, this is going to happen. At 2.5, this is
it
going to
doesn't
happen.
work like that.
It's your instinct.
It's
as
your
well.
instinct. It's your child.
I always
also
say
think-
it's whatever works.
Exactly.
That's like, I've tried and live like that. It's just like whatever works. You might have a different idea of how you're going to do it before you've had the baby.
Yeah.
Till you're in it, like you said, till you're living it, you don't know. So you have to just go, "Do you know what, whatever works.
Exactly.
Totally.
And drop these like preconceptions that you have. Like,
and
how you
it's
want it to
like
be.
learning to identify when your head is falling under the water.
Yeah.
Knowing what drowning feels like. And we're all just keeping our head up.
And know
That's
when
the
to take it.
reality.
just
We're
doggy
all
paddle, like,
doggy
just-
paddling. We're
Yeah.
all walking through water, but it's knowing when like you've got cramp and things are going,
Yeah.
downwards. And I think at the beginning you don't know. You just read so many things about motherhood being hard that you're like, oh, this is what they must be talking about.
Yeah.
But sometimes things are just too hard, and I needed to stop pumping. I needed to get childcare. I needed to pull my family in more. I needed to be honest with what was going on.
Yes.
And I felt absolutely unable to do any of those things. And that's, I think, why it was a really tough gig. And I've got to be honest, Gray was hard work till he was 18 months.
Really?
Like, things were really hard. He carried on being sick. He carried on crying. He just wasn't settled. And for him, everything changed when he started to be able to speak.
Interesting.
And that was the massive change. And since then, over time, everything has slowly ebbed off. The edges. He never really had the terrible twos because he'd just been terrible from the beginning. So there was no
a new thing.
delineation, He didn't really go in for big tantrums. He just was discontented, and was really, really hard.
In every aspect of his character. So you talked about, obviously, he was, had reflux and things, but what other ways was he kind of discontented?
We're all trained that, your number one job as a mum is to do skin contact and form that bond within 30 seconds of that baby being born, no matter how they were born.
Another expectation.
Matter how, exactly.
Yeah.
And I would say that Gray never attached in that way. He was never particularly bothered. He'd cry if we left the room, but he was never hugged. And I never realised until I had a second child that you don't have to teach your children to hug. Because we had to teach him what hugging was. He wasn't interested in toys or bunnies or anything like that. He was wildly independent from the beginning. And he now really does call for his mum. He is affectionate. He is sweet. But it's very different, the way he does it. It's very much like, I'm going to bed now, so there's a hug and a kiss for mum. I'm leaving the house. He's very much, I guess, learned that those are the things. He's never running across the room to give me a squeeze hug.
So as your first child, you didn't know any different?
No, I thought all
failed.
Children
were like that?
I didn't realise that some children are just more independent.
Every child is different.
Some are less cuddly. Some are going to wait until they can articulate themselves to say how much they love you.
Yeah.
And that's very much what Gray has been like. He's very, he talks to us, tells us all the time. He's just not that cuddly, soft, sweet baby kid. He just was never like that. And now we have a child who sleeps hugging his teddy, strokes the side of your face. You're like, what is this?
Too much.
And equally, I'm like, it was never me. It was always him. And that
so does it make you feel slightly better in your own soul?
So much. I feel like I had to have the second child to realise that it wasn't anything that I did.
It was nothing that you did or didn't do.
That with Great, it wasn't like it was only me. He's the same with everyone, with his nanny, with my mum, with Hayden, my partner.
Yeah.
Everyone found his company difficult. All of his childminds would say, kindly as a euphemism, he's a very serious child, because it was very challenging to look after him, and it did all just magic away over time.
And did you go through points in that time when you didn't know, where you kind of blamed yourself or you...
Oh yeah, and of course I put quite a lot of it on social media because I was craving that community, and every day someone would be like, you need to get him tested for autism now.
Really?
You need to he seems like he's got ADHD. He's apparently got according to the rest of the world, the full gamut, all the letters.
Lovely social media.
Good old Google,
course,
or Mum's Net.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And it's like, you're then doing these online questionnaires. I mean, that's the way you
the
find
middle of
out,
the
isn't
night,
it? Exactly.
Right.
And then, he's gone to nursery. He's got no social problems. We've taken him for assessments. It's just his personality.
Yes.
And I had not been warned that your child could have that clear a personality so young. I didn't realise that they were coming with their own vibe already, and you can't do anything about it.
That's just them.
And you're not a failure. You didn't do anything wrong. It's just we've all got friends. Some of them are a little bit more standoffish. Some of them are a little bit too much. It's anyway. So I would say those were kind of the things that I was grappling with. Because you read all the books and you're like, this isn't a secure attachment. Something's gone wrong, and I've missed the mark somehow. And you just kill yourself over it. You really do. And, you're being tested on PhD level skills, and you haven't even taken your GCSE.
So true.
I think that's the problem with early motherhood. It really is. And there are so many...
It's complex.
It's so complex, And, the best thing, of course, is to talk to other mums and be like, oh yeah, my kid was like this, or you were like this. My mum was like, you weren't particularly cuddly. You're still not really now, but that's not actually true. I am very cuddly now, but it's it's to get that context. Where do you get the context from? oh, Mumsnet. That is not the place to look for context. That's like walking out into the street and saying...
That's where to get anxiety
Literally,
from.
it's like walking out, opening your front door and screaming out onto the high road, my baby's crying, what should I do? And then you listening with equal
to all the
weight.
random people.
Yeah, so the next baby, then I thought I only wanted one child. After having the experience with my first baby, I was like, I am not equipped to do this again. I'm obviously not very good at it. I can't put myself through this again. And yeah, I got really sick. I got hepatitis A from, I picked it up when I was in Mexico.
Was this before you had your...
Yes, second baby.
Second baby.
So I got pregnant the second time. I was really, really, really sick. And I like lost 16 pounds in the space of a month. I was like a walking skeleton.
What did you get it from out of interest? Do you remember? Do you know?
Water, presumably.
Right.
And I had also picked up at the same time like awful parasite. I was so ill. Like I was violently ill with a 2-year-old kid. Looking after him, mostly on my own.
And that's very physical as well at that age. Like they were running around everywhere. Just trying to stop them from impaling themselves on everything.
It was worse than pregnancy. And I thought pregnancy was like as low as it could go in terms of how I felt. I had nothing. Anyway, I didn't get my period for ages because obviously I'd lost all that weight and, you know, it's... So I hadn't been particularly... like smart about my contraception.
Okay.
Because I thought I didn't have my period and suddenly we were pregnant again.
Total surprise.
Total surprise. And after everything we've been through to get pregnant the first time, I was like, oh my
It's funny
God.
how it happens like that, isn't it?
Literally.
Sometimes.
Anyway, so pregnant and we went for the 10-week check. We did the harmony test. We did the 12-week check. Everything felt fine. I was really sick.
And when you have those symptoms, like the nausea and stuff, in your head, you think...
Yeah, this must be fine.
This must be fine, right? Because you're like, the pregnancy hormones are strong because my body's reacting like
Exactly. So everything was fine. I noticed that I was small. But considering I'd had, you know,
really
the Incredible
baby.
Hulk first time round, I was like, maybe it's a girl.
Yes.
You know? Anyway, then it was my 20-week scan and my partner had norovirus, so he didn't come with me, a girlfriend did. And we did the whole scan, everything. She's like, right. And then suddenly the room went quiet.
Oh, God.
And she asked me to leave and pull myself together. And I had to go and sit in a little room. And they showed us pictures. And I could see there was something wrong. Baby's bones were all twisted. And she was really small, tiny, you know, just dreadful. And then it was like 4 days at home, just until we could see a specialist. Like,
just
you know,
waiting.
Waiting. And like, of course, you're having conversations, and you know, just hardest with a baby around as well, and you don't want them to pick up on the energy. But then also, you're sitting there and you're like, what have I got inside me?
Yeah,
you know, because it's full stop. You look at an X-ray scan thing, it's like it doesn't feel like a... You know, I was really scared.
And you're halfway through.
Halfway
so
through.
You've been,
so,
you know...
yeah, I was actually 21 weeks by that time, and we went in. Everything was confirmed. They couldn't give us a specific diagnosis, but you know, there was a clear problem with growth. They couldn't say if the baby would definitely make it, what kind of life they would have, but they said that whatever kind of disability the baby had, it was severe. So it was going to have a dramatic impact on their quality of life. So we decided to terminate the pregnancy. And that, as an experience, is, I don't know, you don't know how low you can go in life. Like... You know, it was awful. And because the baby was so big, I had to go into labour. So I was induced.
I'm so sorry you had to go through that.
I didn't have any pain relief, which sounds strange, but I just had such a bad experience with the epidural. Like afterwards, I didn't want to feel like the way that I felt after my first birth. So I had a second natural birth, and we had asked to not know the sex of the baby. And one of the first things after I had the baby, the midwife said, "Would you like to go and see your little girl?"
I'm sorry.
I know. It was just awful. And even now I wish I didn't know that. I wish I didn't know because, you know, I've got these 2 boys now, and there's always like a hole. There's always going to be a hole in our family because she's not there. And I do feel like maybe if I hadn't known, it would be okay. But anyway, we decided that we didn't want to see her. Both my partner and I have made that decision. And you have to go through this list of like 50 choices. It's hardcore. You're like signing things like, you know, are they allowed to use part of the baby's eyes or brains or, you know, things for testing? And do you want the baby to, you know, have parts of their body that can contribute to science? Or, you know, you want to keep the face intact or whatever. Do you want the baby buried? Do you want the baby cremated? Do you want a service? Are you going to give the baby a name? Do you want that name registered? Like, there are so many things you're going through while you've just given birth.
All like massive,
you know, in the space of 4 days, lost.
Decisions you never ever want to have.
Oh my God, decisions that you didn't even know existed. Yeah. And they like show you this pamphlet and there are like pictures of families with their dead baby, and they're like, you could have photographs taken like this. And like, for some people that is so important and they want that for their keepsake, and it's an amazing thing that you know that. But like, for me, I found it overwhelming.
How did you feel in those moments?
Oh, it's just like the panic. The panic is consuming, absolutely consuming. And, you know, you are in this special area of the labour ward, but you can still hear other women giving birth. You can hear babies being born. And, you know, for a woman to give birth to a dead baby is just, it's destroying. And I think, you know,
how
as
did they
well,
handle it? Like in the hospital where you were, apart from the midwife telling you the sex, which is
that was like afterwards. I had a conversation with them. They were like, "That isn't protocol. It was just a honest mistake." And like, of course, we're all human beings. Like, and you know, this generally they were so thoughtful and, you know, kind, and they did say, you know, if you want to have another baby, we know that we will most probably see you back here, you know, and we will be here to support you through that journey. And I think it's difficult to understand, but when you're in the depths of that and when that you're suddenly empty, all you can think about is having another baby in there,
but it's
you know, filling the hole.
That are also going,
Absolutely. And I actually found then, because I got pregnant again within 5 months. It was a really then very difficult pregnancy because we had been told that there were no hereditary issues. And then I got a telephone call saying that information was incorrect and that we hadn't been properly tested, and they weren't able to tell us if it were a hereditary condition. And it transpires that the specific mutation that happened with our baby, if it's happened once, there was a 1 in 20 chance of it happening again, which isn't a small amount.
And you found out when you were already pregnant?
I was 13 weeks pregnant.
Gosh.
So, and we could have done an amnio, but obviously you've got to 13 weeks and you're like, oh my God,
but then there's a
1% chance of miscarriage.
Yeah.
So it's like waiting again until the baby was big enough to be able to see how the bones were being laid down.
Which is
until 20 weeks.
Again. Yes. So I was having scans every single week.
I can't imagine the level of anxiety.
But anyway, you know, we did get pregnant again. Baby was born healthy. He is an absolute angel.
Aww.
He really is. You know, he is the most wanted, beloved child, as is my first child. You know, I wanted Grace so badly. I wanted these babies more than anything. And, you know, the difficulty I then had, I had really struggled in that first year because unsurprisingly, probably hadn't dealt with all my grief from losing our little girl. And then you're like back in baby shops. And, you know, I'm buying him these little boy bloomers and you see these sweet little dresses and you're like, she's never going to be here. She's gone and it should be her. And, you know, you have all of these very complicated, complex emotions of guilt. And then like, should we have tried? And ultimately, when the final genetic tests were done, the condition that our little girl had, she wouldn't have survived birth. She might have survived being, you know, getting to term, but her bones would have been crushed by birth. And, you know, what kind of I would never have wanted to put her through that. So we took the pain, you know, so she didn't. And we would have loved her. We do love her. And And, you know, all the decisions we made around the termination process were all guided by like this light of how are we going to continue to be as good parents as we possibly can be for the child that's already here.
Yeah.
I just think you're so strong.
Yeah.
For other people listening, one thing I wanted to ask you was, how did you find other people like reacted afterwards when you had put it out there and said what had happened? Did you find it affected friendships and like relationships?
A lot of people reacted really poorly, but it's not their fault because we're just not taught how to deal with this.
I do. You know? I agree. Actually, people just don't have the tools.
They don't have the tools because this
awareness.
Maybe the first time that anyone's ever told them this information, and no one's told them the like best response. I got a lot of, at least you've got your baby, that your first child, that must make it better. And you're like, of course it makes, like, I love having a family, I love him, but like it doesn't make it better. It almost makes it harder because I'm now mothering a 2-year-old while going through this grief at the same time. You know, and you get a lot of, well, it wasn't meant to be. You know, there's a lot of, that's like one of the things that, you know, and you know, there's also, there were people that just didn't call me.
Really?
Yeah, they didn't speak. Do you
think that just came from a place of fear of like saying the wrong thing, or they just didn't know how to
6 months later, they sent me a message saying let's go for drinks, but like they just...
Does it change your friendship then? Do you
know what? Not everyone's meant to, like, has to be good at this stuff, you know? People have gone through all their own traumas, all their life experiences, you know.
What would be, like, how would you have wanted someone to... What would you have wanted someone to say? I think
it's just someone to be there for you, you know, and say,
so nothing someone can say is
there's nothing. I think what you say is like, this is categorically shit. There is no anything that any of us can say. This is like as bleak as it fucking gets. Like there is no good way to deal with this. You can go off and be messy. What do you want to do? Do you want to go for a drink? Do you want to go, should we go to France? Should we go and spend some time doing our hair and nails? Should we go and watch like really weepy films? What do you want to do with your time that's going to make you feel, can I just look after Gray and you just go for a walk like once a week for the next month? Can I bring you food? Can I do anything to help, like where you're dropping things because you don't actually have the ability to do the millions of, you know, we're all running 10 minutes late to start off with, and then you're hit by like this big psychological tragedy and you're trying to pull the pieces back, and of course things fall through the cracks. Like I fucked up a lot of things, like I left Gray at school one day, like all nightmare things, you know, because you're just not entirely there. And I think, you know, it's, do you want to cry or do you want to be distracted? Should we sign up for, you know, a pottery class? Should we go and exercise? Let's go and do something, completely take yourself out of it, or do you just want to cry? It's like that, knowing that however you're feeling is accepted and is acceptable. You know, it's like there's no one judging you. And like I went back to work immediately, and that's what I needed to do.
Your way of handling it.
That was my way of handling it.
Was there a charity that helped? Or
so before we made the decision, there's a helpline. It's called the ARC Antenatal Results
and Choices phone line.
And Choices phone line. That's it. There we go. And basically everything I do for charity now, all the money goes to them. They are wildly underfunded, and they are available for anyone. For you, for your partner, for a grandparent, for anyone tangentically involved in this horrendous choice that you're making. They are available to talk to you ad nauseum, basically. They are there for you. And then the NHS, they offer, you know, support, counselling, all of that kind of thing as well, which I didn't end up taking, but it was available. So yeah, I would absolutely say to anyone going through this situation, go and speak to someone that has had thousands of these conversations.
Like, thank you for sharing that story, because I think you know, it is something that's quite rarely talked about, and I think this will be really like interesting for our listeners. Okay, so one topic that I really wanted to get into with you, because I really love everything you wear, and I love seeing all your outfits on Instagram and you're always so well put together. How did you find becoming a mum, like, changed your identity, and did it affect your fashion choices, like from pregnancy to after?
Well, obviously it affected my fashion choices because I have fucking massive tits.
Oh yeah, the tits.
I'm joking.
The tits.
I think we all have really like
Yeah,
petite
flat
boobs.
as a pancake.
Yeah,
For some
So
reason, they go so
suddenly
ginormous.
the size of a head.
they are
Bigger than a
literally-
head.
They are literally bigger than your
They're
head.
Bigger than your head.
coming out from under your arm, from your neck. It's just like
feel you.
oh, sorry.
I feel you.
I've absolutely changed shape massively. So obviously that had a massive impact on the way I dressed. And you know, like all of that, like French girl chic, unbuttoned,
No
low,
boobs.
no bib, no bra. Well, that's not going to work with double G's, is it? You know, it's a very,
And when,
very
especially when they
different
start
ballgame.
leaking and like everything
Yeah.
else.
All
as
of
well.
it, and like you
Yeah,
know,
you have
it's
to wear a bra.
your figure changes. I got because I went through that period of like being pregnant, losing the baby, being pregnant, having the baby. Like that, I feel like I had this like zone of a body in flux going
Yeah.
up and down. So I bought things that worked really well for that. So it was pleated trousers became a big thing of mine because you can wear them high with a waist and there's a little bit of space at the beginning, but then you can let them down on your hips
Yeah.
and have the belly over the top. That became one of like my things that I do from, I guess, month 1 through to month 4.5.
Yeah.
That was like one of my moves. Obviously elasticated waists, dresses with smocking. I love
I loved dresses for me
exactly.
too. Having been pregnant in the summer, it was like
Yeah,
pretty much
the
all I
best
wore.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then through the winter, I really like a tight, elasticated knit dress, like with a
Yeah.
roll neck.
Well, you can
perhaps.
actually see the
See
bum.
the bum.
I love that as well. Just like
Same.
enhance the
Exactly.
bum.
And
Yeah.
there, it suddenly became quite fashionable. You know, Kate and brands like that are doing all like these high end
Yeah.
ones. So I like borrowed a few and made it feel, you know, like a little bit. All you want to do is feel like yourself, right?
So you didn't buy any maternity specific clothes?
Not this time around.
Yeah.
I had like a few bits from Isabella Oliver that I
Yeah.
had from before, and I think like knowing that you've got a great go-to pair of jeans. My
A
big
few basics.
yeah,
Yeah.
Topshop maternity RIP.
Oh,
that was
RIP, missed
the
that.
best. I had
I
a
agree.
great trouser from there. And then, you know, that first bit where you're still breastfeeding and your boobs are gazongas, of course you dress differently.
I found that bit almost harder
the
than being
hardest.
pregnant because I
Yeah.
felt really conscious of my bump because I wasn't pregnant but still looked pregnant.
Yeah.
I was about 4 dress sizes bigger than I'd ever been in my life, and the massive boobs, and it was summer.
Yeah.
And I felt everything was really revealing, and I wanted to be in like big jumpers and leggings and be able to kind of feel like I kind of wanted to hide my body
Yeah.
a bit, which I actually feel a bit sad about now, but that's how I felt, especially the first time.
I think what people forget that it isn't just the size, it's like your skin is moist at all times. That
Yeah.
sounds disgusting.
No,
but
it
you are
does.
literally from
It's sticky.
every orifice.
Yeah.
Yes.
You've like you're
I
sweating,
sweated
you're
a lot. It's like
leaking.
your hormones.
It's not even like
You're
you
bleeding.
feel gross. Exactly, you feel gross in your body, not necessarily because it's like jelly or
Yeah.
anything like that, because it actually feels
Gross.
like
It feels
you
foreign
feel,
to you.
You smell like
Yeah.
you know. You need to have what you need to
proper
wash.
BO, like
yeah,
the
BO under your
breastfeeding.
boob and stuff.
I would get like the
true.
worst BO after
Yeah, exactly.
having
It's
a baby.
hormones.
Yeah, it's
I'd
all
wake up in the morning and
hormonal.
literally be like, oh, like, and I would be covered in sweat. Like I'd literally wake up drenched
Exactly.
in sweat,
Very
like,
true.
from the
So
night
what,
sweat.
so what it felt to me like I was on like the French metro in the middle of August with sweat trickling down the back of my knees and like BO coming from under my boobs, and every literal part of me was disgusting. And I think the way we look is obviously so intrinsic to our identity. However much we like to do our best to separate the two, of course it is. You look like a different kind of
you do.
woman. Do you know
do.
what I mean?
You look like a
that's-
woman, I
Oh,
think.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
exactly.
I've
Suddenly I
embraced
felt...
it so much more the second time.
Yeah.
Like just being like, yeah, my hips are bigger. Like, yeah, like these
Everything-
are my breastfeeding boobs.
Yeah,
but I've just
I-
owned
has
it
changed.
more.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've just been like, my body's fucking amazing.
Yeah, I mean, look what it did.
Yeah.
Well,
But
exactly.
equally, my first pregnancy with Great, I gained 40 pounds. It
I
was
put on, about 4 stone.
4 stone.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
So
like-
I was,
it
I
was
was
a lot,
2.5.
but,
I think it
you know,
takes a good year for
Yeah.
your body. I don't know what you guys think, but you know,
It
a
took
good
9
second
months,
time.
And then I got pregnant again.
Oh yeah.
But
And I
do,
was like, I've worked so hard.
Oh yeah. I remember that.
but yeah, and then it was like, okay, I want to do some exercise, and you know, doing some exercise around young children is very tricky, you know. And I ended up doing like this 15-minute set every single day for 3 months.
Oh wow, did you?
Yeah. So
Consistency is so key.
the consistency. I've actually ghostwritten a couple of books for fitness people So, and what they both said was, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how long you do it for. You just need to do the same thing every day. If you cannot, with a gap here and there. And just, I was like, 15 minutes.
I've had that a lot, 15 minutes
even
work. 15 minutes. It's like just about doing something. But I've heard it from like Kate Hudson to like loads of people say
exactly.
it.
So that's how I did it. And now whenever, like, obviously, you have times where like family life is overwhelming and you fall out of your classes or whatever you're doing, I'll come back to that. So that's now like the thing that I do to make myself.
That's your routine.
I try and run like that if I can't get to a class, even if it's 20 minutes.
It just makes such a world of difference.
I feel like I've done something that feels good mentally.
Interesting.
Get a bit of headspace. 20 minutes to myself.
Yeah, and like it's what you can realistically fit in, and just do that again and again and again.
Yeah,
that's the magic, apparently.
So this is a new feature. We've never done it before, so it might go totally wrong. But we're going to call it Bring It Back.
Okay.
Or Leave It in the Past.
Okay, one or the other.
One or the other.
What are you going to call it, Charlie?
Bring It Back or Leave It in the Past?
Okay, yeah. So we all grew up in the 80s and 90s. So what would you bring back and what would you leave in the past?
So what I would bring back, and I feel so passionately about this, if my mum, with all the other mums on her street, had basically like a collective babysitting kitty vibe. So you would have a certain amount of sits, as would everyone else, and you would share. So it was fortunate for the people with partners.
Too.
So if you wanted to go to an exercise class, you could just like call around all of the mums and say, can someone sit this evening? Ooh. So it was free. So this is when we're talking about the village. These are the kind of bonds that we have lost, I think. Yeah. And that is something that I feel we should work to get back together. And it's like quid pro quo, isn't it? You give a night, you get a night back.
I would
Amazing.
so do that.
So would I. So would I. I would
Absolutely.
100% be into that. So that would be my thing that I would bring back. Leave in the 90s. Did you ever hear about monitor parties?
No. Oh, that sounds bad.
Yeah. So basically, all like along the street, if your like gardens were close to each other, people would just like go out and take the monitor with them and do a barbecue, drinks and next door thing, and leave the kids in the house. And I'm like, did that really happen?
What? That sounds really 80s.
It does. Yeah,
it's like
even the idea of a
when
monitor.
I used to go on holiday with my parents, they would like leave me sleeping upstairs and go, for drinks downstairs with the monitor. Very 80s vibe. Everyone did that.
Yeah, but the monitor parties.
Monitor. I actually don't think they had a monitor.
Yeah. Anyway, but so I'm like, monitor parties need to be left behind. That is not good news. What were you errant parents doing? Drinking on the job.
It was
a different time.
What are yours, Carly?
I would bring back snogging. I think that is mine.
Okay.
I think just snogging for no reason. I think when you have kids, you don't do that. It's not a thing. So,
you'd be a bit like, less of the time.
Yeah, just like go away. Like I've had a really busy day.
That's kind of like
the wetness.
The snogging when you just first get together with someone.
That's
and
it.
you just snog all the time, and like. Yeah, you did just snog a lot more when we were younger.
Like when you're just like in a lift or,
Do you mean in public, like in
just
private?
Anywhere. It was just more of a
Kardashian
thing.
is being very...
Yeah, no, that's true. That she's definitely bringing it back,
yeah.
isn't she?
She's bringing it back.
Yeah, so I just feel like, when you're a parent, you just don't really do it as much. I definitely don't, so I would bring that back.
Are you going to schedule it into your weekly
No,
calendar?
I don't actually think it's going to come back.
Snogging
sadly
is on the menu.
Sadly.
I'm just thinking my boyfriend's face, the shock. If
it would be a shock. It would be a shock.
The sloppy wet tongue coming his way.
I don't
he'd be like, all right, babes.
Don't think mine would be into it at all.
When do you have time?
Exactly, this is it.
We should make more time for snogging. I'm into it.
Yeah. And I would leave behind, I think the whole like low rise, like Britney Spears jean trend is trying to eke its way back in.
It's like you need a really thorough wax before you attempt this one.
Yeah, and I think that needs to just be left firmly in the past for me personally.
Okay, so for me, bring it back. An ex. Just putting it out there, Hugo was my ex.
Okay.
We are now, married.
Things have worked
very
out.
happy with,
Yes.
it wasn't right when we were together when we were younger. Like, if we'd stayed together then, we wouldn't be together now. We wouldn't have our lovely family. And, J-Lo's doing it.
It's true.
Love it.
Do you have like a portmanteau? Like, have you got a Benefer? Millie?
Amigo.
Hilly?
Hilly.
Mugo.
Mugo. I like Mugo. I like Mugo.
That's brilliant.
Mugo, the poster couple for XX.
Oh, yeah. So obviously that would be my bring it back.
Great.
And leave it in the past for me would be, I absolutely love your fringe. It looks amazing on you.
Okay, fantastic.
I
That's for you.
attempted a fringe. It just really was not a good look, and I never got. I'm not that good at doing my hair. I know how to do my kind of waves that I love, but I could not get like my fringe just like owned me, and I could not take ownership of it and just get it. It just would not obey me.
It just would not sit
It
right.
would not sit
What was
right.
your fringe like?
It was like something about Mary most days. It was just like frizzy, curly, going in the wrong direction. It just wouldn't sit right. It gave me acne. And it was just bad.
It was all wrong. It was all wrong.
It was all wrong.
How do you maintain your fringe? It's pretty slick.
Yeah, I mean,
I think you have to know how to look after it. And
I
clearly
do
you're a
wash and
fringe expert.
I do wash and dry my hair every day.
Do you?
So
There you go.
that is part
That's
of
the
it.
key.
That is, yeah. But you can just wash your fringe. So that's
like
the
go all
one
over
thing
the
that I
sink.
do sometimes when
go.
you've got like 7 seconds. Keep all the hair intact and just do a fringe
Wow.
wash.
Good
That's
advice.
a good little freshener.
Good to know. But
Good to
I,
know.
however, will still not be attempting another fringe.
There we go.
There we go. That was
Love
really
it.
good. That's the first time we've done that
Yeah, that was
feature. I
great.
loved
That was
it.
good. That was
okay. You can do that again.
Okay.
Well, you are our first guest. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, honestly.
What
That
an
was
honour.
Thank you so much. You were
So
amazing.
interesting and
guys.
you just so eloquent and just, yeah.
Yeah, so
So much to
articulate.
say.
Lovely morning spent.
Thank you so much, my
Thank
love.
you for
that was
having me.
amazing.
Oh,
Thank you. Did you enjoy it?
Oh my gosh, so much.
So good to see you.
And also, like, our first guest.
Oh,
Such an honour. to
You're
have you.
amazing.
Thank you. It was the best. I hope you have a gorgeous rest of your day.
And you
my love.
too.
And really good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Can't wait to hear it all.
You will soon. Yeah, you will very soon. That's
Take
okay.
care.
Bye.
Honestly feels so good to talk openly about all of this stuff.
Absolutely. Long may it continue. Until next time, guys, good luck with your life, love, and your little ones. Thank you so much to our producer, Laura Galla, for Feast Collective.
Thank you also to Basement Chats for creating this space where we can chat freely.
Please don't forget, guys, that you are listening to our raw and edited, authentic thoughts. We really aren't experts on any of these topics and we aren't doctors. So if you've got any worries, please just contact a healthcare professional.
Yes, and specifically for anyone struggling with the results from a scan, the Antenatal Results and Choices charity are an amazing resource that can provide essential information. Remember, guys, we want to hear from you too. So if you've got a mumlemma, then please send it in to us.
Yes, please send in any dilemmas you have, big or small, to mm@basementchats.com or DM us at basementchats.
And don't forget to follow the show in your podcast app.